Hey there, yogis, and welcome back to Daily Yoga Tips for Beginners, where I help you get started on your yoga journey. So, we're back with tip number 13, where we are going to go through a sun salutations and put them all in a flow. So we are here. We are ready to start putting the physical asanas into our yoga practice. And most classes that you go to, you can even find great teachers online that you will find often do one version of, or maybe two versions of the sun salutations as a warm up or even throughout their yoga sequence. It's one sequence that we consider to be a foundation of poses for you to begin to practice, as you will find that you're going to come back to these particular poses quite often in different yoga classes. So I'm going to go through the individual poses with you one at a time, and then we will start to speed up the sequence, kind of build some heat, and then we will wrap it up in a very short flow for you guys to put together. And the great thing about this flow is you don't have to do anything fancy. If you want a quick yoga practice in your day, you can use sun salutations A, sun salutations B, or even moon salutations as a very quick practice. So today we're going to focus on sun salutations A, and if you've been following along, you're going to find this sequence familiar because this was something I introduced to you guys in our basic movements tip. I can't remember what tip number that was, but our basic movements, we did a short sun salutations A flow. So the first thing I'm going to do is demonstrate here in the middle of my mat each pose that we'll go through, and then I'll go to the top of my mat and I'll cue you guys through a short sun salutations A flow. So the first pose that we start off with is mountain pose, and again, that's just flattening out the feet, grounding through all four corners of our feet into our mat, standing up nice and tall, pretending that string is being pulled from the crown of our head, pulling us up nice and tall, really feeling that length through our body. Now your hands can be at your sides, palms can be facing your thighs, or out forward, whichever feels most comfortable for you. And this is going to be the start of sun salutations. And then you will have some portions when we're inhaling, our hands come to the sky. So that will be part of moving into our mountain pose. The next pose that we will go into is a forward fold. And that is simply folding forward at your hips, allowing gravity, your head, neck, shoulders, arms to relax towards the mat. Now, if you recall from the last time we talked about forward fold, you may be feeling some tightness or pulling in your hamstrings. So if you're feeling that, just go ahead and bend your knees however much you need to, because the goal here is you want to try to get your belly to touch your knees. So you're ensuring that you're folding from your hips. Now, if that's not where you're at today, that is perfectly okay. But that is kind of the form that you're going for in a forward fold. Really allowing the weight of your upper half of your body to relax towards the mat. And that is your forward fold. And then we'll talk about a half lift, and that's really where you're flattening your back. So you're elongating your back here. Palms are on your shins. Maybe you just come up to your fingertips, whichever form of half lift is in your practice. And to let you guys see kind of what it looks like from the side, as we're bending from our hips and we're just folding forward. You see I've got some bend in my knees here. That's perfectly okay. And this would be your forward fold. Okay? And then as you warm up, get familiar with your practice, eventually you'll try to extend both of those legs into more of a forward fold. And everybody is different, so your version of this pose may look different than mine, and so forth and so have you. That's perfectly okay. This is your practice. So we did forward fold, then our half lift, palms on our shins look like this. So you can see we're really focusing on that flat back here. Okay? And then the next pose would be plank. So we're planting our palms. Fingers are spread out nice and wide. We're pushing away from the mat. Shoulders are away from the ears. And you're in plank. Okay? And then you've got your knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga. So if you're taking chaturanga, you're coming down to the mat. If you're taking knees, chest, chin, you're going to drop your knees, come down to drop your chest, flatten out, and then finally your chin comes to the mat. Okay? And that's going to bring us down to the mat to get ready for upward facing dog, where you're going to take both of your palms and you are fully extending your arms and pushing away from the mat, pulling your shoulders away from the ears. Let me get my stance here right. That's a little bit better. Fingers are spread out nice and wide. And there are two versions of this pose that you can take. You can see how right now my thighs and legs are resting on the mat. The other version is lifting. And that's going to give you a little extra oomph in your body as you exercise. So if you want that extra challenge, try to lift up. Okay? And then from there, we lift up, untuck our toes, coming into downward facing dog. And this one is where you're going to focus on evening out the weight distribution between the upper half and bottom half of your body. So you're pushing away from the mat with both of your hands, just like we were in plank. Your shoulders are rested away from your ears. Your head is relaxed towards the mat. And if you're feeling that pull in your hamstrings like we talked about in forward fold, again, you can bend your knees as much or as little as you would like. Okay? And then the shoulders are dropped away from the ears. And this is another pose that you're focusing on elongating the back, not so much your legs. And then as you work, you want to warm up. Maybe you pedal out both legs, one leg at a time. With the full extent of downward facing dog being extending both of those legs, pressing your heels towards the mat. And as I said before, some people are able to get their heels fully down to the mat. Others aren't. That is okay. Whatever your version of this pose is perfectly okay. If you feel like you want a little more cushion under your heel, you're someone that your heel doesn't touch the mat, you can grab a blanket or a small pillow and you can put it under your heels to be able to use that as extra cushion to bring the mat towards you. So even in this sun salutations, feel free to use those props as you need to. So let me do some demonstrations of how you can use your props. So in your forward fold, place your block down in front of you, fold forward, and maybe you're placing your hands on your block. giving you a little extra support there with your knees bent. Maybe it needs to be on the taller side. Whichever works best for you. Remember the downward facing dogs. If that is a little too much for you today, you can always take child's pose instead of downward facing dog. So when you're here in upward facing dog, you can just bend the knees, come back, sitting on your heels, forehead comes towards the mat. Maybe you need a little extra support here, so maybe your forehead comes to a block. Maybe your knees are together and arms are extended out forward. Maybe your knees are spread further apart, so you're giving your body more space to be comfortable in this pose. And then maybe you're using the block. Maybe you're using a pillow, a blanket. Maybe your forehead comes all the way to the mat. So you can see there are so many options that you can throw into sun salutations when your body needs something different. Always listen to your body. All right, so now that we've talked about the poses that we go through in sun salutations, let's put it all together and flow through. We'll flow through it 2 times, and then we'll really speed it up, and then we'll wrap it up in that brief pose. Let's see here. We're at 13 minutes, so yeah, that'll work. Okay, so I invite you to come to the top of your mat. Feet can be together, slightly apart, whichever is most comfortable. Coming into mountain pose, so you're standing nice and tall, pretending that string is pulling you up, elongating the spine. Arms are down by your side, palms are facing out or by your thighs, whichever feels most comfortable. On your inhale, arms to the sky. On the exhale, you're going to fold forward, allowing your hands to come towards the mat. If you're feeling that pull in your back hamstrings, remember to bend the legs or bend the knees, and just allow your body to rest forward. Now your arms can be resting on a block here. They can be reaching for your toes. They can be grabbing opposite elbows, whichever feels the best. Now on your next inhale, we're going to halfway lift. So flatten that back, palms on the shins, or maybe you come up on your fingertips. Then exhale, forward fold. Let me readjust myself here so I give myself a little bit more room. We're going to try that half lift again. And then from here, we're going to plant both of our palms onto the mat. Step back into plank. And from here, take your knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga. So I'm going to take chaturanga, coming down to the mat. And then once you're down at the mat, you're going to press away from the mat, fully extending both of your arms. Broaden those shoulders, pulling the shoulders away from the ears. Your thighs can be up off the mat or resting, whichever feels best for you. And then on your exhale, we're going to lift the hips, untuck the toes, coming into our downward facing dog. Now this being that first downward facing dog, go ahead and pedal out one leg at a time, warming up those hamstrings. When you feel like you've got a good warm up in your hamstrings, try to extend both of those legs. Coming back to your breath here, taking a deep inhale and exhale. Another deep inhale and exhale. Now bend the knees. We're going to walk to the front of top of our mat into a forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, palms on the shins, or maybe you're up on your fingertips. Exhale, a forward fold. Inhale, bend the knees and slowly rise to standing. Standing up nice and tall in mountain. Take a nice deep cleansing breath. So deep inhale and a quick exhale. That's our cleansing breath. So inhale, arms to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, palms on the shins, flat back. Exhale, plant the palms, step back into plank. Now take your knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga. So this time I'm going to take knees, chest, chin. So I'm dropping to my knees, coming down to my chest, and finally my chin is coming to the mat. From here, we're pressing away from the mat, lifting with our arms, broadening our shoulders, making sure they're dropped away from the ears here. Upward facing dog. And then exhale, lift the hips, tuck the toes, coming into downward facing dog. I'm losing my grip here. Come back to the breath. And remember, this is the pose that if downward facing dog is not a pose you want to do today, you can take that child's pose. Now bend the knees, walk to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift, flattening that back, palms on the shins. Exhale, relaxing into your forward fold. Inhale, bend the knees and slowly rise to standing. Standing up nice and tall into mountain pose. Alright, so we've done that a little bit slow. Let's go ahead and do 3 rounds of it, and we're going to speed it up. So we're going to match the movement of our breath. So with our inhales and exhales, okay? And if you need a moment, go ahead, feel free to pause the video, take a breath, take what you need to, come back to it. It's perfectly okay. Alright, so in mountain pose, inhale, arms to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, palms on the shins. Exhale, plant both of the palms, step back to plank. Come down to the mat. Inhale, coming up to upward facing dog. And then exhale, lifting the hips, coming over to downward facing dog or child's pose. Now bend the knees, walk to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, bend the knees, rise to your mountain. Standing in mountain. Nice cleansing breath. Inhale, arms to the sky. Exhale, forward fold, palm, hands to the mat. Inhale, halfway lift, palms on the shins. Exhale, plant the palms, step back into plank. Exhale, coming down to the mat, whether you take chaturanga or knees, chest, chin. Inhale, pushing away from the mat, fully extending your arms, dropping the shoulders away from your ears into your upward facing dog. Exhale, lift the hips, coming into downward facing dog. Come back to your breath here, focusing on your inhales and exhales. Now bend your knees, walk to the top of your mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bend the knees, rise to standing. All right. And that is your sun salutations. So now that we've run through the full extent of sun salutations, I'm going to run through it one more time with some modifications to show you some options that you have to switch up whatever poses that you want to, depending on how you feel that day. So starting at the top of my mat again, starting in mountain pose, standing nice and tall. Inhale, arms to the sky. And as I exhale to forward fold, I'm bringing my mat, my block to me, placing my palms on my block. Inhale, halfway lift, so maybe I'm coming to my fingertips on my block for that support. Then exhale, we're moving the block, planting our palms, and if you don't want to step back to plank, you can come to all fours or tabletop position. So you come to tabletop, and now we need to come to the mat. So now we're coming down to the mat, knees, chest, chin, okay? Maybe you don't want to do upward facing dog. So instead of doing upward facing dog, just push away from that mat coming up into cobra. And then when you do cobra, you come down, and then you're going to lift, come up to your knees, coming back into child's pose instead of downward facing dog. Then from there, you're able to come up to all fours. You can come up to downward facing dog if you want to. Walk to halfway lift. And we're coming back to forward fold. And then we're rising to standing. Okay, so I'll go through that one more time through the full modification, okay? Starting at mountain. Inhale, arms to the sky. Exhale, fold at the hips. Palms coming onto my block. Inhale, halfway lift, fingertips. Exhale, coming down to all fours. Then coming down to knees, chest, chin. Cobra, coming down. Lifting to all fours, coming down to child's pose. Finding my breath here in child's pose. Then coming up to all fours, tucking the toes, spreading my fingers out wide, lifting my hips, coming into downward facing dog for a brief moment. You can keep your knees bent here. Walking to the top of your mat, halfway lift, bringing that block here as we come back into forward fold, bending our knees and rising to standing. All right, so that gives you two versions of sun salutations that you can practice over the next couple of weeks to get your body used to those motions. And remember, the more that you practice them, you may find that you start to implement or try to work on the full extent of the pose. Maybe you continue with those modifications. Both choices are perfectly okay for you. It is up to you to decide. So I hope you found that helpful. Come back tomorrow for another tip to help you continue on your yoga journey. Until next time, my friends, namaste.